Gift certificate will come in handy whether you're building or planning to remodel. From Kitchens by Design, 3 locations. To win, watch Wheel of Fortune weeknights at 6:30. When you see the wheel deal on your screen, beat the 13th caller with the right answer. Watch Wheel of Fortune on TV 13 and win.
Time now for a preview of the news at 6. Let's get to John.
Thanks, Laura. We're going to have much more from Scott on Vietnam. We'll go behind the scenes to find out about the negotiating that enabled U.S. senators to get what they wanted. Scott will talk live with one of those senators, Iowa's own Chuck Grassley. And the pictures you just saw, we're going to take a look at how spring planting is going in central Iowa. These stories and more in 1/2 hour.
It's getting to be that time of year.
You bet.
Thanks, Sharon.
Finally today, imagine just how big is a blue whale? Well, how do you get that across to students? Well, here is one way. It's an outline of an endangered mammal drawn on the lawn at Hoover High School. The Des Moines students were studying the creature as part of Earth Week. Now today the goal is to see how many students could fit inside the line drawing. Guess how many, Scott?
350.
200. Well, you read my script.
I saw it on the script. Thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow. Let's go to New York and NBC Nightly News.
The best news yet about the American economy as consumers begin to believe in the recovery. The Pennsylvania primary looks like Bush and Clinton, but voters still are not happy. A big Miami drug bust that goes right to a major Colombian cartel.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, reporting tonight from NBC News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. On the day of the Pennsylvania presidential primary, President Bush, Bill Clinton, and the national economy all doing okay, with the same question for all three. Is it good enough? Today's government numbers on the economy are the clearest sign yet of a recovery. But as NBC's chief financial correspondent Mike Jensen will tell us now, the pace does leave something to be desired. Michael?
Tom, in most of the country, the economy is picking up steam. There are a few states where there's no growth yet, and the improvement is slow. Still, it's clear at this point that the country is on the mend.
The biggest news of the day, and the best, was the 2% increase in gross domestic product. That's the rate the economy grew during the first 3 months of this year. As these figures show, the economy has been inching upward for a year now, and this is the best showing yet. Not good enough to set off a wave of hiring, but it is the strongest growth in 3 years. Looking forward, more good news. The sharp increase in consumer confidence in April was the second in a row. People surveyed think business is going to get better. They do not expect, however, to rush out to buy more cars or appliances or homes, not yet. And that continues to be a problem. New home sales in March had the biggest month-to-month drop in more than 10 years, partly because of slowly rising mortgage rates. Economists point out, however, that new home sales for the first 3 months of the year still were much higher than they were last year, and that existing home sales held up well in March. With the economy starting to improve, corporate profits are up. General Motors announced today that it earned almost $180 million in the first 3 months of the year, its first profit in a year and a half. And small companies like SMS, Shared Medical Systems, are doing well. It just announced a profit increase of 12%. A lot of analysts think most new jobs, when they come, will be with small companies that specialize.
American business has been too enamored with diversity, getting out into lots of different businesses, things which they knew nothing about. Most of those have proved to be disasters.
There's a lot of damage to undo. Leveraged buyouts, corporate debt, individual debt, government debt. This economy needs to grow at twice this pace if there's going to be a real surge of rehiring. Tom?
Thank you, Michael. But politically, of course, any signs of recovery are welcome at the White House, where President Bush has been hammered by this troubled economy and the earlier false signs of recovery. As NBC's John Cochran tells us now, the president is trying for another fresh start. John?
Tom, as much as he would like to, the president is not quite ready to say the recession is history.
What Bush did try was to boost consumer confidence in the economy and George Bush.
And I think most people would say that 2% growth is not recessionary. And there's some areas that are still hurting. But clearly this is A good sign.
Bush is cautious because last year he got stung by a phony economic recovery after the Desert Storm War. So the only victory Bush is claiming now is political, not economic. He told campaign workers that today's Pennsylvania primary will assure his nomination. But his campaigning is sluggish. Last night at a North Carolina fundraiser, Bush drew only 300 Republicans instead of the thousands his aides wanted. Today, he tried to gin up some enthusiasm.
But I'll be damned if I'm going to roll over for a lot of these outrageous charges that are coming out of the opposition day in and day out. We don't have to take that.
The most damaging charge is that he is a domestic incompetent. So Bush is focusing on domestic policy, this week cutting back on government red tape. In his State of the Union address, Bush announced a 90-day freeze on new regulations. NBC News has learned that tomorrow, Bush will extend that freeze another 3 months. Bush is claiming credit again for something he claimed credit for more than 4 years ago.
And when you go to the country now, Mr. Vice President, what specific achievement of the Reagan years do you take credit for, significant achievement?
Well, I'm pleased that I headed the deregulation task force. I happen to think we've lifted the burden from governments and from businesses and helped stimulate the economy.
But some voters doubt that deregulation stimulates anything except unsafe conditions and unemployment. Ask airline workers whose companies folded during the decade of deregulation.
And the president may find that many other voters simply don't care about deregulation, especially voters looking for radical change, especially voters looking carefully at Ross Perot. Tom?
Thank you, John. And NBC's Andrea Mitchell now is covering the Democratic side, where Bill Clinton's strong Pennsylvania showing is tempered considerably by what lies ahead for him. Andrea?
Tom, Pennsylvania was always going to be a sure thing for Clinton, an easy victory. He had hoped a solid win would propel him toward the convention and beyond.
But the Clinton camp was rocked this morning by a Los Angeles Times poll showing him trailing both George Bush and Ross Perot in California, the next big primary state.
I haven't done a very good job of it. I intend to do a better job. You can help me today, will you?
Will do.
Governor, are you going to do anything differently?
Just going to keep campaigning. I'm going to talk less about politics and more about people. I'm going to get back to what got me into this race in the first place.
In fact, Clinton did well in Pennsylvania by focusing on George Bush and appealing directly to disenchanted voters.
You don't need 4 more years of certain slow economic decline while you're being told that things are better when they're not. You don't need that.
He ignored Jerry Brown, and so did most voters. An important factor in this heavily union state, the endorsement belatedly of labor leaders who had opposed him.
And with someone I consider to be one of my newest, and I think is going to be one of our best friends.
As people got to know Clinton better, they seemed to like him. In Pennsylvania, 64% of Democrats voting today said they think Clinton has the honesty to be president, compared to only 49% of New York Democrats who thought he was honest. But there are still problems. A majority of the Democrats want someone else to enter the race. 1 in 4 in both parties said they'd choose Ross Perot in the fall. Clinton's reaction to that?
Well, he hasn't had the negative publicity I have, and he says a lot of the things I've been saying.
Clinton now turns to party leaders to help him overcome people's doubts. But other Democrats, including Pennsylvania's governor, still have reservations.
Bill Clinton has got to address this character problem. He's got to do it himself. Politicians can't do it for him. Endorsements can't do it for him. It's between him and the American people.
For the first time since becoming a candidate, Clinton will visit Capitol Hill tomorrow, hoping to make members of Congress who are important delegates at the convention feel more at ease about him. Appearing at the Capitol is a calculated risk, given the way people feel about Congress these days. Tom?
Thanks, Andrea. Also on the Pennsylvania ballot tonight, Republican Senator Arlen Specter, who had a prominent role in last year's Clarence Thomas-Anita Hill hearings. Specter is expected to win in his party's primary, but he may have a harder time this fall. He could be up against Lynn Yackel, who must first get past today's Democratic primary. Yackel has been critical of Specter for his questioning of Ms. Hill. Still to come tonight, the voices of the people. Bob Kerr visits a Pittsburgh neighborhood, and he talked with some very turned-off voters.
An important message for patients taking Cardizem SR.
I need a refill on my Cardizem SR.
You may want to see your doctor before your next refill, because there's a new Cardizem available, Cardizem CD.
What's the difference?
Cardizem CD should save you money, and it contains the same medication as Cardizem SR.
Can you give me Cardizem CD?
Only your doctor can change your prescription. Ask your doctor if new Cardizem CD is right for you.
Cardizem CD. Thanks. I'll ask my doctor.
Red Devil enamel. You can always count on its durable finish. Harder than ordinary paints, its beauty lasts and lasts. Red Devil enamel for the finish of a lifetime.
Of all denture adhesives, only one holds the strongest, and it's just taken a turn for the better. Fixodent's new Easy Twist Cap. It's bigger, it's a snap to open, and it's one more reason to Fixodent and forget it.
Tonight, one more reason why Washington is in so much trouble with the American voters. The U.S. Department of Agriculture decided we needed a fresh reminder of what's good for us. Sounds simple, wrong. NBC's Robert Hager.
In the beginning, it was simple for all of us. There were 4 food groups to learn: milk and dairy, meat, fruit and vegetables, and grains. Often they were displayed in a wheel. But last year, when the Agriculture Department proposed a food pyramid designed by a public relations firm for $160,000, there was big trouble. The dairy industry complained it wasn't getting as much space as other foods. So did the meat industry.
So the Agriculture Department withdrew the graphic, hired a new research firm, drew lots of new designs, and tried them out on hundreds of people across the country.
The research firm experimented with triangles, half circles, rainbows, bowls, shopping carts, even picnic displays. Today, after spending another $855,000, Agriculture Secretary Edward Madigan said the winner was a pyramid. A pyramid, reporters asked? Wasn't the last design a pyramid? But this, Madigan explained, was different.
Some of the things as they are illustrated in the pyramid have been changed because some people in the focus groups had trouble identifying what the different items were. For example, the cheese in the original pyramid appeared to some to be a piece of cake. The macaroni in the original pyramid appeared to some to be hot dogs.
33 changes in all, Madigan claimed.
The cheese was changed from a wedge to 2 things that clearly to me looked like pieces of cheese. And the macaroni was changed to a plate of spaghetti. There are other changes like that throughout the graphic.
$855,000 in taxpayers' money to get from this to this and make choices simple again for all of us. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
The war on drugs tonight. Federal agents are claiming a significant victory after a series of dramatic strikes in South Florida, aimed at what is now the world's leading cocaine cartel. NBC's Noah Nelson.
You have, I want in the back seat behind the...
U.S. drug officials say they have rounded up 10 important members of Colombia's Cali drug cartel. They are accused of smuggling 22 tons of cocaine into this country.
We believe they were key principal managers here in the United States on behalf of the Cali cartel.
U.S. agents in Miami earlier this month seized 6 tons of cocaine packed in shipments of frozen broccoli.
Bingo.
In December, 15 tons of cocaine were found in fence posts being stored in a Miami warehouse just blocks from Drug Enforcement headquarters. Officials say the Cali cartel is responsible for 80% of the cocaine smuggled into the U.S., and its operation is becoming worldwide.
The packaging of the cocaine has also turned up, identical packaging has turned up in places like Warsaw, Poland, and Prague, Czechoslovakia. We don't think that that's an accident.
Cali, Colombia has quietly become the headquarters of an international drug cartel. Because of the crackdown on the more violent and better-known Medellin cartel, Cali has become Colombia's #1 drug organization. Despite the Miami drug seizures, officials admit this is just a small part of what is being smuggled into the United States.
They don't put all their eggs in one basket any more than the investigative agencies or the U.S. Attorney does. They have a number of mechanisms.
The suspected drug kingpins arrested in Miami are in a federal prison. They face drug conspiracy and distribution charges. Noah Nelson, NBC News, Miami.
Deborah Gore Dean was an executive assistant to Housing Secretary Samuel Pierce in the 1980s when that big housing department scandal was unfolding. Well, today a federal grand jury indicted her on 2 counts, illegally accepting a gratuity and then lying about it. She repeatedly has denied these charges. On Wall Street today, the encouraging economic news had little effect on the market, but trading was active.
I swim, I jog,
I love junk food. Sometimes even I get constipation. When it happens to me, I take this little pill. It's Ex-Lax. Surprised?
Now, only Ex-Lax pills give you 3 choices. Regular, extra gentle, or new maximum relief with 50% more medicine. Today's Ex-Lax for regular people who sometimes aren't.
Now you can ask Angela Lansbury about Bufferin.
Angela, you said on TV that Bufferin's effective pain relief. Is it really strong aspirin?
I'll say it is. Extra strength Bufferin's the strongest dose of aspirin you can buy. 1,000 milligrams.
Angela, how can Bufferin be so strong if it has buffers?
That's a good question. I've learned the buffers don't weaken it. They just help prevent aspirin's stomach upset. Bufferin's great pain relief.
Shouldn't you discover the strength of Bufferin?
Fingerman here for the one and only Ziploc. Something fishy going on in your refrigerator? Nothing works like Ziploc brand storage bags. Ziploc has the Gripper Zipper, the only bag with tough, tiny teeth. You can feel it gripping, so you know freshness is locked in, odor is locked out. That's a special feeling you get from Ziploc. Sorry I had to point fingers there, fella. For fresh food, there's only one, Ziploc.
Germany's strike by public workers now is snowballing into one of the country's worst labor headaches of the post-war era. 100,000 workers were walking off the job today, and Germany is finding that unity does have a very high price. NBC's Keith Miller.
This is not what people expect when they think of Germany. Even many Germans couldn't recall the last time the public sector shut down. Bus terminals empty, the postal system paralyzed, and the nationwide train service crippled. It was a commuter's nightmare, and union leaders say it's going to get worse.
We try not to ruin the country, but we will strike and we will try to have an effect on the employers.
Public service workers demand a 9.5% pay increase. The government is offering half that much, and in some industries even less. The dispute is a direct result of the enormous cost of reunification. Billions of dollars have already been spent in the East on housing, roads, and modernizing industry. Its estimated total cost could reach $1 trillion by the end of the decade. Taxes to help pay for it have gone up 7%. Inflation is up to almost 5%. And with high interest rates holding back economic recovery from London to Washington, everybody is keeping an eye on Germany.
I think they're watching it very closely, just as homeowners who've borrowed heavily to buy their homes in Britain and France and other countries will probably also be watching the course of the dispute.
The German economy sets the pace for Europe, and a hiccup here is felt in every major capital on the continent. Keith Miller, NBC News.
Another source of concern across Europe has been that fighting in what was once Yugoslavia. Some 400,000 Bosnians have fled their homes because of the violence. These refugees have taken shelter in Slovenia. European efforts to broker peace in that region so far have failed again and again.
In the course of a lifetime, you'll buy 2,450 batteries. You'll throw 134 birthday parties. And your family will eat over 2,500 pounds of popcorn. But you'll only need one Tarkett Lifetime floor. That's why we call it Lifetime. And right now, save big during the Tarkett Lifetime 20% off sale. For the name of your Tarkett dealer, dial 1-800-4-TARKETT.
When you live away from it all, you don't see much TV or get many newspapers. So when you go out for the groceries, you don't make choices based on commercials or coupons. You choose based on facts. And of the 50 leading cereals, you'll find only one that's low in sugar and a good source of fiber and made from whole grain oats. Cheerios. Life isn't this simple everywhere, but choosing a cereal can be. Choose smart. Choose Cheerios.
Red Lobster may have gone too far this time. A full pound of tempting shrimp overflowing your plate. Red Lobster's never offered you, so much on one plate. 10 grilled shrimp, 15 butterfly, 11 scampi. A full pound of our biggest and best shrimp for a limited time. So much shrimp with all the extras, including a doggy bag.
Red Lobster for the seafood lover in you.
Here's a great big idea.
Saladshooter!
From Presto, professional salad shooter slicer shredder. Big capacity and power. Special blades to point and slice thick, slice thin, shred, even ripple cut. Right where you want.
Saladshooter!
From Presto.
You make me feel so young.
Promise Extra Light Spread. Half the saturated fat and calories of margarine and a taste you'll enjoy with all your heart.
You make me feel so young.
Promise Extra Light. Get heart smart.
Those Middle East peace talks continued in Washington today. On the agenda this time, the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Israel's negotiator claimed progress. The Palestinian side said it was disappointed, but not without hope. And Secretary of State James Baker said the peace process is alive and well. In other news around the world today, Afghan guerrillas in Kabul celebrated with gunfire as their top rebel leader arrived from exile in Pakistan. The Muslim rebels are back in power after 14 years of Marxist rule. This F-22 test model of an advanced stealth fighter was destroyed by fire after crash landing in California. The Air Force just announced the Saturday crash. The pilot bailed out, suffering minor injuries. And push came to shove again in upstate New York as demonstrators clashed outside a Buffalo abortion clinic. A federal judge ordered 5 anti-abortion leaders arrested for blocking the clinic. And the candidate who was not on the ballot in Pennsylvania today commands John Chancellor's attention tonight.
Tom, Ross Perot has problems. Most people don't know who he is. He's never been elected to anything. On the other hand, he's got all the money in the world and he's a terrific organizer. A Perot presidential campaign could cost him $100 million. Not all that much for a man that rich. He wouldn't have to spend anything on primaries or a convention, so most of his money would be spent on television advertising. First, life story ads. Who is Ross Perot? Theme ads. Why is this man running? During the Democratic and Republican conventions, those ads could say what Ross Perot would do if elected. In the fall, he could run ads on why he would be a better choice than either of the others. The others might run ads saying Perot is just a rich loudmouth trying to buy the presidency. That might not work. David Sawyer, a highly regarded political consultant, points out that being rich never hurt Nelson Rockefeller or other wealthy candidates. The voters say better his money than ours. No government experience? Sawyer says the kind of experience Perot does have may be just what the voters want this year. Perot's race would be run almost totally on and for television. Traditional grassroots party organizations can't guarantee success in a television campaign. Money can help a lot, and Ross Perot could outspend everybody. This is, of course, a terrible system for electing presidents. But the system was terrible before Ross Perot came along. Who can blame him if he decided to take advantage of it? Tom?
Thank you, John. It took 13 years, but more than 800 women have won the largest sex discrimination suit in U.S. history. State Farm Insurance will pay some $157 million to the women who charged that they were denied any chance of getting those lucrative sales jobs with the company.
If you're a small business that calls one area code more than others, you can choose a calling plan designed just for you. Introducing the AT&T Partners in Business Plan. You can get a 20% discount on the area code you call most automatically, even if your calling patterns change each month. AT&T Partners in Business. Choices, because one size does not fit all. Call us.
You could ease up a little.
Table for two in about 5 minutes. Mr. Douglas, I have your table.
But you're not gonna. You could stop being a perfectionist. But you're not gonna. You're not gonna change because of heartburn, and you don't have to. There's something new that's like no ordinary antacid. New Maalox Heartburn Relief. It stops the burning and helps keep it from coming back. So get on with life like you're gonna live it. New Maalox Heartburn Relief is made for you.
Reintroducing a glorious... The
1992 Buick Roadmaster. With its powerful V8 performance and the security of its driver's airbag, anti-lock brakes, and full perimeter frame, Roadmaster is perhaps the best value in an American luxury sedan. Roadmaster also delivers something only a Buick can deliver. Buick quality.
Her name is Sarah, and she's lucky, because today she'll encounter egrets doing gators in the wild. She'll see how other moms take care of their kids, and she'll be doing this, recycling, through a program of the National Park Service and its recycling partner, Dow.
We can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
Together with the National Park Service and folks like Sarah.
Dow lets you do great things.
Election day, this time Pennsylvania, and once again we hear the voices of the people. So far this year, we know almost everyone is unhappy with the choices, and voter turnout is running lower than ever. Our national correspondent Bob Kerr went to Coraopolis, Pennsylvania, to see if the voters accept any of the blame.
We don't get involved. We don't listen. We don't pay attention. It's just that simple.
And I guess we're all at fault because there's a what's in it for me attitude that permeates the country.
Wayne Foley, a Westinghouse executive, and his wife Sue, a homemaker. 2 of their 4 children still live at home. John Soretti, not only a proud husband and father, but also a high school dropout who's become a successful car dealer. And Kathy Boots, who keeps an eye on 3 children with husband Mark, a pilot for U.S. Air. They all live on Parliament Drive near Pittsburgh. They all vote. And like so many Americans, they are frustrated with government.
There appears to be a major struggle right now between our 2 political parties that is literally rendering our government's ability to function, it's just not working.
The people of Parliament Drive know that they are partly to blame for creating the government gridlock that frustrates them. At one time or another, they voted to keep Democrats in control of Congress and a Republican president in the White House. If there's gridlock, aren't you part of the problem?
I think that's a bit simplistic. I don't want to go so far as to say that because that is part of our traditional check and balance system.
Mark and Kathy complain about the power of special interest money on politicians, money from political action committees, PACs. But Mark would not want to stop his PAC, the Airline Pilots Association, from giving money and exerting influence. And neighbor Wayne Foley also seems to want it both ways. He wants government to be as efficient as his company, but knows that federal budget cuts would mean fewer contracts for Westinghouse.
Whenever the government is going to cut back, it's cut back somewhere else, but don't cut my particular issue or interest back.
And car dealer John Soretti, like his neighbors, would be wary of any tax plan that called for more sacrifice.
I would have to see a plan that would enable us to see exactly where our dollars are going, and no one has presented that plan in any real visible form.
When we were growing up, President Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Is that still alive?
I don't think so. I'm afraid it's not. I think that too many people feel that it'll get done regardless of what they do, and well, whatever happens is going to happen. No matter what I do, it's not going to have an effect.
You know, unless it's going to really pertain to you at that moment, we get busy in our lives and we feel like, hey, you know, let's let that go.
They say it would take an inspirational leader or an extreme threat to move them, to unite them.
I think that was easy during the Gulf War whenever there was a common enemy. And an enemy like apathy is very difficult to fight and identify.
It's as much a challenge to voters on Parliament Drive as it is to those who would lead them. Bob Kerr, NBC News, Coraopolis, Pennsylvania.
That's nightly news for this Tuesday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Coming up next from your 24-hour news source.
The senators are back from Vietnam. They call their trip a success. We'll take you behind the scenes of their negotiations in my report, Vietnam Behind the Lines.
Senator Grassley, part of that delegation to Vietnam, will have a live interview with him from Washington.
And central Iowa farmers are not praying for rain. For a while, they want to get into their fields to plant. I'm Kathy Salter. I have a live report on how well they're doing.
And a fight in a Knoxville nursing home turns deadly.
76-year-old facing charges. These stories just ahead.
Fact. Ford will introduce its 93 Escort early this year, so your Ford dealer is clearing out all 92 Escorts. Fact. All 92s must go before the 93s arrive. Fact. Get 2.9% financing on every 92 Escort in stock. 2.9 for 48 months. Fact. It's the best time to save on America's best-selling compact car, and your last chance to get 2.9 financing. So if you don't get to your Ford dealer before the last of the 92 Escorts are gone, it could cost you thousands, and that's a fact.
Here at Big Ideas, I'm the big shot, and I think big. That's why I'm big on this big new computer package from Best Buy. It's a Packard Bell 386SX. Big seller. It's got a big 130 meg hard drive and 4 big megs of memory. Plus a big-time VGA color monitor, 24-pin printer, accessories, and 4 big league software programs, all for just $17.68. Small potatoes. So take it from me, the big cheese. The big news is this big package from Big Buy.
Best Buy.
Best Buy.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for the real food?
The chicken in Hardee's new Grilled Chicken Club and Chicken Filet Club is 100% whole breast meat, not some pressed-together patty you see at some other places.
So come on in and try Hardee's new chicken clubs. They come with lettuce, tomato, and crispy bacon.
Are you ready for some real food?
Hardee's. Live from WHO TV 13, where the news comes first 24 hours a day. John Bachman, Kim Kerrigan, Rick Silvestrini with sports, and meteorologist Gary Amble with the weather. This is News Center 13 at 6.
Before this trip, the doors of Vietnam were open only a little bit. Today, they're open quite a bit more, at least halfway open, and they have invited us in.
One of those doors open to this working Hanoi prison where American war prisoners may have been kept just 5 years ago. Good evening. For nearly 20 years, Americans have waited and wondered about POWs and MIAs from the Vietnam War.
Tonight, the nation moves closer to finding some answers. In a moment, Scott Pope will have an exclusive report on his trip to Hanoi. But first, a delegation of U.S. senators just back from Southeast Asia reports investigators will have unrestricted access to Vietnam. However, the delegation also learned more than 500 U.S. flyers listed as missing in action were killed by villagers in Laos. And there may have been warehousing of American remains in Vietnam as a bargaining chip for the normalization of relations with the United States.
The Senate delegation that visited Vietnam discussed its fact-finding mission this afternoon in Washington. Iowa Senator Charles Grassley says the trip provides a unique opportunity for the U.S., while Massachusetts Senator John Kerry says it opened the door to new relations, but more work lies ahead.
Has it answered all of our questions as we stand here today? No. Are there questions still to answer? Yes. We went there to guarantee that a process is in place that will permit America to end this agony.
We need to take advantage of the groundwork laid by our delegation. Our efforts can now emphasize investigating not just crash sites, but especially live sighting reports.
In just a moment, we'll have a live interview with Senator Grassley to hear firsthand his thoughts about that trip to Vietnam.
The senator's main objective on that trip, to gain unrestricted access for American investigators looking into reports of MIAs and POWs. Until now, the Vietnamese have been unwilling to provide that access.
But as Scott Pope reports in his series Vietnam Behind the Lines, the senators used the Vietnamese economy as a bargaining chip.
By American standards, most Vietnamese live in poverty. We found the housing to be primitive and the food of low quality and in short supply.
Most Vietnamese would like to see normalization with the United States as soon as possible to help jumpstart their economy, an economy that definitely needs a jumpstart. Unemployment here runs around 30%, and the annual salary of an average Vietnamese is about $200 American dollars.
The Vietnamese government has been pressing for normalized relations with the United States for years. That would mean international trade and an opportunity to improve the economy here. In fact, they're counting on it. The senators use normalization as their ace in the hole.
If they count on that, that means they aren't going to be fully cooperating with us. And I think that somewhere along the line, there's going to be a penalty paid.
We have live sighting reports, eyewitnesses who saw people who appeared to be American POWs. We're not going to normalize relations until we have a chance to check out those reports.
Senator Grassley from Iowa. Good to meet you.
Iowa. In a meeting with the Vietnamese foreign minister, the senators also demanded straight answers on another MIA issue. Over the years, U.S. intelligence has turned up evidence that the Vietnamese have been storing American bones.
That we would get some bones one time, and it might have some parts of bones that didn't go with that particular body. And then later on, we'd get another set of bones, and there'd be some in this first set of body that went with the second set. So the point being, if they don't warehouse, how come these could get mixed up this way and the rest of the body show up later on, see?
After receiving no guarantees from the foreign minister and the interior minister, the senators went right to the top, to the presidential palace, and a meeting with the Vietnamese general secretary. After a 90-minute closed-door session, a major breakthrough.
He said, we'll do anything. So we're going to put it to the test this afternoon.
That test was a surprise spot inspection of a Hanoi prison, where American investigators report live sightings of Americans as recently as 5 years ago. That's our story tonight at 10. And access to that Hanoi prison is one of the open doors that Senator Grassley talked about in his press conference this afternoon. Senator Grassley joins us live from Washington to talk a little bit about the trip. Senator, good to see you again. Hope you made it home okay.
Yeah, Scott, I want to compliment you and WHO TV for giving this the high priority that they did by sending you to Southeast Asia, and how good of a job you did of covering it. I think you really saw some amazing things, and the 38 families in Iowa that have answers yet to be gotten about their loved ones surely appreciate it.
Senator, thanks very much. I think you probably got some answers, it sounds like, when you went to Laos. Tell us about what the Laotian government told you about these 522 Americans who were likely killed by villagers.
Well, they indicated that some probably could have had that happen to them. They considered the anger of countryside people when American bombs were raining down on their families and villages and crops, that some of that anger probably did lead to American pilots being killed. But there isn't any way that that could take care of the answers we need for some 600 Americans that were shot down, some of which were probably killed in the crash, others maybe killed by villagers, but there's still hundreds that they were not willing to answer for.
Senator, in the last newscast we had live at 5, I had a viewer ask me, how can you trust what the Vietnamese have told you? They've lied to us in the past, and I told them that I guess there really was no way. What's your feeling on that? Do you think we were getting the straight story over there?
Well, first of all, we feel that they really want to normalize relations. They need it for the benefit of their economy. That seems to me that gives us tremendous leverage. They've made a statement that you already quoted from Chairman DeMoy, the General Secretary of the party, that he would let us go any place, see any documents, talk to anybody we wanted to talk to. We put that to the test, as you've already indicated, by visiting this prison. We also put it to test the next day by dropping in by helicopter into 4 military bases without any announcement ahead of time. It seems to me that they're letting us do that is some test of their sincerity. Now, we've still got many months to go, but we would expect that that they would continue to cooperate as they said so. Otherwise, there won't be normalization of relations.
And they desperately want that. Senator Charles Grassley, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. So the work goes on for the Senate delegation. They still have much work to do, as Senator Kerry said today. They feel that there is an open door and that the investigations will proceed a little better than they have been over the past 10 years. Much of it still remains up to the Vietnamese. I think you get an indication of how unreceptive they really are to these open doors that the Senator talked about in our report coming up tonight at 10, John.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Again, Scott's series, Vietnam Behind the Lines, airs all week on News Center 13.
You're going to see what Vietnam looks like nearly 20 years after the war. Tonight at 10, the first ever look inside a working Hanoi prison. And then tomorrow, a visit to B-52 crash sites all over Hanoi. On Thursday, a tour of the American War Crimes Museum. And Friday, a look at Vietnam today and its hopes for the future. Vietnam Behind the Lines only on News Center 13 at 6 and 10.
In other news today, the Urbandale Police Department is not responsible for the death of 2 residents, according to the Iowa Court of Appeals. Relatives of the victims had filed a lawsuit against the department. 2 years ago, Harvey Spencer shot and killed Victoria Graham and David Repp. Graham contacted police after being threatened by Spencer and was told officers would keep a special watch. But Spencer got into her home and shot the couple to death. No shopping this evening at the Venture store on Southeast 14th Street. Store managers shut down the building today after a small fire. The fire broke out in the storage room late this morning. No one was injured in the fire and the damage was light. However, the store closed for the rest of the day. Investigators believe the fire was caused by an electrical short.
Well, the warmer and drier weather certainly a welcome relief for area farmers. Spring, of course, is planting time.
But once again, Mother Nature is making it difficult.
News Center 13's Kathy Soltero caught up with some farmers this afternoon, and she joins us now live with the Live-By. Kathy?
Well, Kim and John, it seems like we looked all over central Iowa to find a farmer who was out planting in his field this afternoon. Very few of them because the fields are still very soggy. That's especially the problem here in Des Moines and to the south of Des Moines. But up to the north, the farmers up there are finding drier fields, and that's making them very happy. Mike Helland is just one of a few central Iowa farmers able to get into his fields and start planting.
This is real good. Normally we don't start planting until about the 25th anyway, so we're just a couple days behind what we would normally do.
There's still a lot of farmland around central Iowa that is saturated from the heavy rainfall, but this soil has a lot of sand in it, and that's why it's dried up so quickly. The Hellands say this is the first of hundreds of acres they'll be planting this year. Helen says the past couple days of dry weather was just enough to plant on these 22 acres. And give or take a few days, the planting is right on schedule.
This is about average right now if we could just get a chance to run. But we need to miss a few rains and keep at it. We don't need 2 weeks of cold, wet, rainy weather again.
This is also an opportunity to break in the equipment for the heavier work. As long as Mother Nature cooperates, Helen says they can plant an average of 800 acres a week.
We need to miss a couple rains that they're forecasting tonight and then again Friday and Saturday. If we could miss that, we could be in real good shape.
The planting season generally starts around April 25th and runs through May 10th, and they say any planting that happens after May 10th, they could see a decrease in their yield, so they're hoping to get in with the next couple weeks.
Thanks, Kathy.
Got to ask Gary Amble to help them out a little bit. A bizarre incident in a Knoxville nursing home. This 90-year-old man killed in a fight. A 76-year-old faces charges. Mary Mills will have that story.
For lawmakers, another day at the State House. We'll have the latest in the battle to hammer out a budget plan.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies often carry cold germs. A purple mountain's majesty might be